Pawn e2 to e4. Pawn e7 to e5. Knight g1 to f3. Knight b8 to c6. Bishop f1 to b5. Pawn a7 to a6. Bishop b5 takes c6. Pawn d7 takes c6. Knight b1 to c3. Bishop c8 to g4. Pawn h2 to h3. Bishop g4 takes f3. Queen d1 takes f3. Knight g8 to f6. Castle kingside. Bishop f8 to d6. Pawn d2 to d3. Castle kingside. Bishop c1 to g5. Bishop d6 to e7. Queen f3 to f5. Knight f6 to d7. Bishop g5 to e3. Queen d8 to c8. Queen f5 to h5. Rook f8 to d8. Knight c3 to e2. Rook d8 to e8. Knight e2 to g3. Bishop e7 to f8. Knight g3 to f5. Rook e8 to e6. Pawn c2 to c3. Queen c8 to e8. Rook a1 to d1. Rook e6 to g6. Queen h5 to h4. Queen e8 to e6. Pawn c3 to c4. Knight d7 to f6. Rook d1 to c1. Pawn a6 to a5. Rook c1 to c3. Pawn a5 to a4. Pawn a2 to a3. Pawn c6 to c5. Rook f1 to b1. Rook a8 to a6. Bishop e3 to d2. Rook a6 to b6. Bishop d2 to g5. Bishop f8 to d6. King G1 to H1. Rook B6 to A6. Bishop G5 to D2. Bishop D6 to F8. King H1 to G1. Rook A6 to B6. Bishop D2 to E3. Rook B6 to A6. Bishop E3 to G5. Rook A6 to B6. Bishop G5 to D2. Queen E6 to D7. Bishop D2 to E3. Queen D7 to C6. Bishop E3 to G5. Queen C6 to E6. Bishop G5 to E3. Rook B6 to A6. The game is a draw.